Hey, welcome back to the channel. This is the first video for a while. Had a few issues with sound cards. I replaced my Native Instruments Complete Audio 2 with a new solid state Logic 2 USB audio interface. The other thing that I've done is rebranded the channel under my the original name that I had, which was Reason Music Production, rather than my name. So there's a few changes there on the channel and across some of the socials as well. I'm going to take a look at this evening is parallel channels in Reason. So if you're interested in looking at those, seeing what you can do with them, stay tuned and we'll dive in.
This is where we all get down.
So a cool way to work with insert effects in Reason is to use parallel channels. Okay, so I'm going to play an example of what I mean by that, and then I can show you how I've put that together. So this is just simply an retro beats with a kick, a snare, a few hi-hats and other things thrown in. So I'm just going to play this. Okay, so what I'll just do briefly here is I'll solo these two channels here, which you can see that they're parallel because they have this P1, P2. You can create as many parallels as you like. These are parallels of my beat, and my beat, if you look in the rack, is this retro beats that we've just played. So this is the retro beats playing without the parallel channels. Okay. If I unmute those and play them again. And I'll solo out the parallels. So what's happening here is on the parallels we've got effects, insert effects added in there. So off P1 we've got a pulverizer, a bit of EQ, so we roll it off all the low end on this one, and then on P2 we've got this Audiomatic set to the wash effect, and of course here you can dial in obviously how much effect you want as the signals processed through that. So let's roll this back and we can see how we created these parallel channels and how we got this to work. So I'm going to remove these and we're going to go back to the vanilla my beat, which again just sounds totally dry signal there. So the way you create a parallel channel in Reason is to right click on one of the channel strips, so again my beat, and there is an option here to create parallel channel. As soon as you create that, you'll get another channel strip here, and the naming conventions you've got here are P1, and obviously it'll be P2, P3, P4 and so on, depending on how many parallel channels you create. The prefix is the parallel channel of P and then the number, and then the naming convention is the name of the channel that the parallel was created from, so the source channel. So this is called my beat. So if you do rename this thing, it adheres to that through the parallels that you've got there. I'm just going to put that back to my beat. And the way this works now is on the rack I have a P1 mix channel here, and inside show effects I can start dropping in some particular effects here. So if we take what we did before, I'm going to stick a pulverizer in there, and there's one set in here for hi-hat modulation. So again, if I play this, you can see this is firing here, and again we can dial in as much of that as we want on the dry wet signal here, but also in here I might want to do a bit of EQing as well. So not only am I getting the original dry signal on the my beat mix channel, I'm now blending in P1 my beat as well. Okay, and what I might want to do with this, seeing as we're just trying to affect the high end, is maybe just roll off to say here. So again, if we play this, start to dial in this hi-hat modulation. I can mute it here to kind of hear what it sounded like. And again, of course, you can pick any of these patches if you want to. Okay, so that's the P1 my beat. Now, let's say I wanted to maybe manipulate that even further. I could obviously just drop another effect into P1 in here if I wanted to, but you can create another parallel channel, but you don't create it off the source. So if you look at my beat, you can't create another parallel channel off that source. You have to create it from the one, the latest one in the chain, if you like, right? So I can create another parallel channel from here. Okay, and again, if we go into the rack here and look at P2, there are no insert effects in there, so I can now add something else into here. So in the previous example, I took an Audiomatic and I got it on the wash, and again what I can do is dial in as much as that as I like to affect the signal. So if we play this, and of course you can remove these. So if you don't want, let's say we didn't want the hi-hat modulation, we can take this out and it automatically shifts them back down. So this again is P1 now, so the Audiomatic stays in there, and I can just continue to dial in what I want here. Of course I could be doing some compression as well in here, so I could drop a compressor on here if I wanted to do that. Same sort of concept. And again, if you wanted to delete this, you can just remove this mix channel here, so that you go back to where you were with the dry signal just off my beat. So again, easy enough to delete, just right click and delete from here, and you're kind of back where you started. So again, super easy to create the parallel channels, dial in the dry wet. Of course you can do it if you're doing it here. Sorry, let's throw that back in again for a second. Say dial that in halfway, but of course the levels here you can adjust as well, and obviously this is the same control here. You can see them both moving if you want to do that. Oh, control click, by the way, I'll put it back to 0 dB if you want to do that. So the other interesting thing that I've been doing for a number of years now is grouping channels through an output bus. Okay, so what I mean by that is, let's say we're just keeping this kick and percussion as it is, but I start dropping in here some synths, maybe one for the bass, and melody and so on. Let me chuck one more in just to show this. So drop in a Thor in here as well. What I tend to do, and it's become habit over time, this is set up on my template, is to colour code these things. I have my synths in Kelly green, my kick in red, bass in blue, percussion orange, and yellow, depending on whether it's like hi-hats or bongos, toms, whatever, in yellow, and then sort of effects and things like that. I tend to colour orange, vocals in red. But obviously if I was to do something with these three synths here, there is something you can do here by on Windows. You could do control and click, and you can highlight, select these three mix channels. If you right click on these, you have this route to menu option, And by default, these are routed to the master section. So of course, if I was to play some keys on these synths or use a player to generate something, they all end up going through the mix bus, and that's obviously what you hear here. But what I can do is I can route these to a new mix bus or a new output bus. And again, the way I work with these, change this to graphite it's just a routine I've got into doing that. But you can see that these three all then route through this bus. And again, similar concept to parallel channels. What I can do here is I can, in the rack, in the insert effects, I can be doing some compression in there, some EQing, delays, reverb, all the kind of things that you'd want. But that affects the signal from all three of these when they're playing. Okay, so that's pretty cool. And I tend to group together all the synths, the vocals, percussion, and have this, this may be called synths. Or if I've got groups of them, there might be synths one where these three play, bouncing off call and answer on some of these things in this group, if you like. Again, you can click on these change graphite grey because I've changed the colour of this mix channel, but if you click on it here, you can reroute one of these back to the master section. So if you want to take that out of that group, say, and then route it to another output bus, I could call this synths 2. Again, colouring it. This is the beauty if you create yourself a template. You can have all this set up and you don't have to do this, but it's my OCD here. I have to put those in order. But anyway, there you go. So then we've got this one. And then of course, if I drop in another instrument in here, mimic, say, by default, it'll route to the master section, but I can drop that into synths 2, put him in here, colour him green, and away we go. So the cool thing about this is, as I say, you can, off the rack here, you can put some effects in here and do some further processing if you want to do that. But the other thing is you can solo those quite easy. So there I can solo synths 1 really easy without doing this. Let's say you might have 4 in there, 5. And rather than doing them individually, I can do this here off this output bus. Same here, right? So I can then listen to all the synths quite easily if I wanted to here. I just got into the habit of doing that. It seems to work really well with my workflow as I'm building stuff out there. So that's sort of a beginner's look at parallel channels in Reason, and also grouping, creating outbus channels as well. If you like some of this content, please subscribe and take a look at some of the socials that are listed below this video. Thanks.
Yeah.